Okay, guys. What was the most important day of your life?
The day I innocently messaged this girl on Facebook that I wished I'd gotten to know her better before graduating college. We'll soon celebrate our 12-year wedding anniversary, have 3 kids, and I'm as infatuated with her as the day we went on our first date. If not for that message, we very likely would never have seen each other again.
Love this. Happy anniversary. My high school crush, no joke. He was the classic jock. I was a nerd, messaged me on Facebook 19 years after we graduated. I friended him first. But I wouldn't have ever messaged him. We're celebrating 6 years together in April.
Slid into DMs, ended up building a family dynasty.
This is a long one, but bear with me. The day I randomly decided to fly to California for the cast party of an online musical I acted in. In the same night I met my now husband. Met my best friend, who officiated for our wedding. Met each member of my now 4-ish-year-long D&D game I run. Got to meet, and get drunk with, several of my personal acting/gaming heroes who showed up to the party as a surprise. Had one of those actors tell me they had an inside joke about how much they liked my performance in their personal group text. And now, 6 years later, I am living in California with the love of my life, in a good career that I never would have joined if I had stayed in my home state. All from one night.
In 1981, I stopped by a jewelry store to get a new watch battery installed. I recognized the young woman behind the counter as a coworker at a theme park from 5 years before. We reminisced about those days and went out for lunch together. Coming up on 41 years of marriage. It was a good day.
The day I became sober from drugs and alcohol. October 24th, 2022.
Not to mention, I've lived most of my 364.25 by 28 days in this world on less than $100, and you're telling me for this one day it's going to cost me $30K plus to live it? Like what? Why is this acceptable and encouraged? Other huge capital expenses I can think of, yes, school, a car, a house. But those don't last only one day. Heck, the most I've spent is on vacations and holidays, and those cost nowhere near $30,000 for one day. Even if you have a small wedding or whatever, the dollar amount is just not worth it. IMO. Say no to drugs, kids. The day I bet on myself, applied and interviewed for a management position in my company. A lot of people warned me I might not get the job. I really worked my ass off on my resume and star interview prep. Highly recommend prior to a job interview. I was offered the job. Same company I've worked for years, with a 23% raise. It's been life-changing. I'll never be a rich man, but as long as I don't fuck up, I will never have to lose sleep over bills again.
Ha ha ha. This is the best thing I've seen on Reddit today. Just like MJ said, always just gotta take the shot.
The day my parents signed the adoption papers. In the most important sense, that was when my life began. My first 6 months have nobody who knows any details, including me.
The day my fiancé proposed.
My first date with the woman that is now my wife. I was planning to go bye-bye and then met her about a month before the date I had picked. We've been married for 8.5 years and have an amazing little 5-month-old boy. I still struggle with depression, but I've got a strong support system in place.
Going bye-bye is never a solution. Everything can be alright as long as someone keeps fighting. Your story proves that.
When my daughter was born, my wife almost died and I felt like I had gained one love and lost another for a half hour, which felt like an eternity. In that moment it made me appreciate everything I had in my life and not to take it for granted.
I know it sounds silly, but when I was 11 my best friend invited me to an all-girls sleepover and it was one of the best nights of my life. I had been struggling with my gender identity and why I felt the way I did, and it was one of the only times I was able to forget about it all and just be myself. We dressed up like our favorite Spice Girls and talked about crushes and all the stuff I had wanted to do but couldn't because I was a boy. Everyone just assumed I was gay and no one made a fuss about it one way or the other. I fell asleep feeling so happy and content. And to answer the question that everyone's going to ask, I dressed up as Ginger Spice, duh.
Transferred from community college to a university, and one of the first days we had people discuss internships in DC. Long story short, I missed the normal window because I transferred in the winter, but they still had space. 13 years later, and that choice resulted in me joining the military, meeting my wife, moving to DC area and finding a career I would never had at home, and my daughter being born.
Daughter's birth.
The day my daughter was born, everything that's ever happened to me, everything I couldn't explain, everything I regretted, everything I wish I could have changed. It all suddenly made sense, and now I have no qualms about what came before. It was the road that brought me to her.
The day I decided to leave my country. That decision led me where I am today, just living a good life with the person I love. That day changed everything in my life.
The day my wife Pam said yes. Met her at my job as a paper salesman.
When I boarded a red-eye flight to a city I'd never been to under the pretense of getting sober. My life now is completely different, for the better, because I did what was necessary to be on that flight when it left the gate. I don't have a shred of doubt that getting on that plane saved my life.
The day that I decided not to transfer from my university to a different, arguably better school purely for purposes of more fun and more life experiences. I decided that, instead of transferring, I would take 69 to 70 credits over the next 18 months, equivalent to about 4 typical college semesters, so that I could study abroad for a full 6 months, without taking a single class abroad relevant to my majors. During that semester abroad, I traveled across Europe with some of my best friends and met my wife, with whom I have shared a wonderful 15+ years, complete with great cats and kids. As a bonus, because I stayed at the worst college, I earned a full tuition scholarship for my final 2 years, including the semester abroad, and graduated college without significant debt. Do what makes you happy.
The day I started getting treated for ADHD changed everything. The entire trajectory of my life was different after that. Literally feel like Superman.
The day bison graced my village.
Each of the days that my 5 nieces were born. They've taught me the meaning of true, unconditional love, and I'm unbelievably lucky that I get to be their auntie.
I guess it'd have to be August 20th, 2023. Phil Anselmo told me side-a-stitch at a show that I was on the list to fill in for Dimebag Darrell in the Pantera reunion. Not that I ever would, but that's probably the closest thing I've gotten to an award that ever meant something in my life.
Hell yeah, man, that's the coolest thing I've heard in a long time. Congrats. Rock on, man.
The day I signed my lease on my first apartment. I remember walking into that empty space, locking the door, and sitting on the floor crying in relief. For the first time in my life, I was safe. I could decide who was allowed in my space. If someone wouldn't leave, I could legally have them removed. I had a front door that my parents didn't have a key to, and I was safe. Best day of my life. Grew up in an emotionally and verbally abusive home with extremely messed up and controlling parents. I was so glad to finally be free.
That day when I realized, the moment you start killing time, it starts killing your future and your dreams with it. Changed my life for good. Smiley face.
The day I discovered the tree elves living in my backyard. Little cutie pies.
I finally figured out what I want to do. It took me some time, but it led to somewhere.
The day I beat Mario Kart Wii on mirror mode. Took so many hours, but my OCD won. Ha ha ha.
January 16th, 2012. The day I called the CEO of the energy company I worked for and gave my notice of resignation so that I could go make a living flying airplanes. LOL. My dreams really did make me fly away.
Oof, so many. So hard to choose from. I guess probably the day when I realized that it is up to me to be happy, and to look within rather than try to get it from someone else.